Hey, it's Jael from Cell Based Nutrition, and today we're going to be talking about being tired. I did a video earlier about why, in chronic pain, simple tasks can be overwhelming, and I wanted to spend this evening's video discussing how energy budgeting works and why daily life can feel heavier and slower when you are living with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, complex medical needs, and disability. Often when I make these videos, they come from a place where I have already processed what I am going to discuss. But today I am recording from a place of exhaustion. What I want to do first of all is to acknowledge that for many of us, daily life is tiring. Our battery seems to be always depleted. It seems to take a lot of energy to charge said battery. And from an external perspective, this is often read as laziness. And I really want to push back on that because that is not our burden to absorb. That is not a label that we need to internalize, because those of us with lived experience of chronic pain and chronic illness, chronic fatigue, understand that the title of lazy is a fabrication. It's a myth. It doesn't really exist. It doesn't even begin to touch the sides of what we are experiencing. Many people with chronic pain, especially those who are new to dealing with chronic pain, often feel confused about how hard simple things feel. Even those of us who have been battling pain for decades, there were some mornings where waking up, bathing, brushing our teeth, washing our faces, washing our hair, getting dressed, answering messages or returning phone calls, making food can be exhausting. And often we blame ourselves. We may criticize ourselves if we didn't sleep well the night before, if we didn't eat well the day before, if we forgot to take our supplements, if we are not hydrated. And even though all of these things are extraordinarily important, and you know that I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist, so these things are incredibly important, but missing a day or two isn't what is responsible for our fatigue. Energy is a finite resource. It has a start and it has an end. And I like to discuss this, if you will, in a concept of energy economics. When you live with chronic pain, energy is not restored overnight. When we are sleeping, our bodies start to repair. If there are any cells that need regenerating, if there are any damaged cells, if there's inflammation that needs to be taken care of, if new cells need to be created, our bodies are busy overnight, making sure that we, in theory, are the best versions of ourselves when we wake up. And for those of us living with long-term illnesses, that means our bodies are very busy when we are sleeping. Let's take my condition, for example, sickle cell. So for those of you who don't know, sickle cell is a hemoglobin disorder. So my bone marrow produces defective red blood cells. And the red blood cells are defective in terms of size and in terms of shape and in terms of flexibility. One of the main roles of red blood cells is to carry around oxygen and iron around our body. And these are bound to a protein in our blood called hemoglobin. Well, my hemoglobin is distorted because of a genetic abnormality, which means that my red blood cells carry around less oxygen. So I live in a constant state of hypoxia, which is low blood oxygen, and low blood iron, which is called anemia. So you can imagine low iron, low oxygen equals low energy. And so even at night, when my body is trying to repair the damage that the hardened, inflexible red blood cells have caused to my veins, arteries, capillaries, and other blood vessels, my bone marrow is still churning out defective red blood cells. There isn't a break. So sleep does not restore and repair in the way that we think it would. Add to that the pain from these distorted red blood cells getting stuck in my blood vessels, causing blockages, starving tissues and organs of oxygen, of blood, of fluids, of vital nutrients. That triggers acute pain episodes called crises. That's what a sickle cell crisis is. So if we think about people who are living with chronic illness, and of course your illness may not have the same biology as mine, but if you are experiencing pain, that often means that you are experiencing poor sleep, being woken up out of your sleep because you're in pain is not for the faint of heart. There's inflammation taking place. There's nervous system activation taking place. And all of these different activities are all pulling from the same energy pot, the same energy resource, and it gets depleted, and it stays depleted because even when you go to sleep, your body can't regenerate because it's mopping up as much of the damage that was caused based on not even just the previous days, but the previous week, the previous month's exertion of energy. So when you live with chronic pain, you do not start the day at zero. It's not like a fresh start. You already start your day exerting energy. You know, I did a talk at a sickle cell event last year, and I want to talk about the concept of a baseline drain. So I read a medical article. It was a study that was from 1998 that said that adults living with sickle cell have a higher basal metabolic rate than people without those hematological disorders, which means that our energy requirements, especially those of protein and carbohydrates, are significantly higher, up to 36% higher than people without our conditions. And I would probably go as far as saying that anybody who is living with a chronic pain condition would have higher energy needs than an able-bodied person without that same condition. This means that even when we are resting, our bodies are working harder. It means that there is a constant churning behind the scenes to regulate pain, to regenerate or create new body cells, to dampen down and clean up the impact of inflammation. And as a result, our bodies are drained, tired, and depleted on a near constant basis. So when people with no lived experience and from an ableist external perspective want to title our inability to do things quickly, our inability in some cases to do things at all as laziness, it should be understandable why we can get very frustrated by this. So this background energy requirement reduces what is available for us in terms of energy for daily life. Okay, so if our body is doing all of this constant repair, regeneration, mopping up, tidying up, and keeping our eyes open, how much energy is then left for daily tasks? And this is why tasks that look small from the outside take a mega effort internally. For me, getting ready in the morning takes a very long time. And you know, it's often easy for people to say, oh, you know, she's a woman, that's why it takes her 2 hours to get ready in the morning. It would be lovely if I had the real energy to spend 2 hours looking absolutely fabulous in the morning, completely glamorizing myself. That would be great. But the vast majority of that 2 hours is spent being out of breath. It's spent being in pain. Is spent recovering from the previous task and psyching myself up to do the next task. And I know that there are so many of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, that each and every task includes an extra energy cost. The task is never just the task. Think about basic things, how much effort it takes to hold your body upright. For an able-bodied person, that's never a consideration. Think about the cognitive load, remembering tasks, remembering words, being present for conversations, emotional regulation. Imagine having to be grounded and present and relaxed when your body is on fire, when your nerves are inflamed, when your muscles ache, when your bones hurt. And then on top of that, we have an element of pain anticipation, where you are running on fear that you are going to have a flare up. Many of us have conditions that cause pain surges. So whether it's a flare up, a crisis, whatever the terminology is in your particular condition, there is a fear, there is an anticipation that that is going to happen and ruin your day. And that is why mindset and willpower and all of these things that people try to say, oh, have you tried this? Have you read this book? Willpower doesn't fix your biological drain. Willpower doesn't fix the hypoxia. Willpower doesn't fix anemia. willpower doesn't fix exhaustion. And it's really important for those of us who live with complex health needs to avoid this self-blame loop. Sometimes we have to block out the noise. Sometimes we have to ignore people, even if they mean well. Even if they mean well, and you know that your inability to do something because you've reached capacity, we know that that has nothing to do with laziness or a lack of will or a lack of intention. And we have to block out those voices, because we run the risk of internalizing that ableism, and then we have to deal with all the self-worth issues that come along with that. And quite frankly, we've got enough on our plates. It's not worth it. When we push through, our capacity, when we do more than our body is able to, that creates a debt. And it's a debt that either has to be paid now or it has to be paid later. If that debt is paid later, it shows up in the way of crashes, flares, or complete system and body shutdown. And sometimes we do have to push through. And it's not great when we do that. But sometimes we have hard deadlines. Sometimes we have places that we need to be. Sometimes we have things that absolutely need doing. And we have to make that decision with whether or not we're going to use those last remaining spoons for a particular event or a particular task, knowing that the debt will have to be paid at some point. It's a case of energy budgeting. We are deciding where we're going to utilize our energy for that day. Sometimes it feels like we need to do less, and sometimes it feels like we need to do less for a long period of time. And we're not always going to be able to do less forever, but there are days when we just about have enough energy to sleep, wake, and eat. It's about deciding where we're going to spend the energy. It is a constant decision about where energy expenditure matters the most for that day, and how well we can protect our recovery. Sleep is extraordinarily important. We all know that. And if sleep was so easy and so relaxing and so restorative, most of us wouldn't wake up as exhausted as we are. But we know that sleep is difficult, which is why there's a whole discipline on sleep hygiene, to create the right environment for restorative rest. Not being able to sleep effectively, and I mean this without it being loaded or judgmental, mismanaging our energy, especially in the early stages when you're learning what your capacity is. You may put energy in boxes or in areas, and then you realize towards the end of the day that you've reached capacity and you wish that you hadn't spent certain energy on other things. It's a learning curve, and no 2 days are the same. What you may have been able to do easily yesterday or the week before may take all of your energy today or tomorrow. And this is not weakness, this is adaptation. Living with chronic illness and complex medical needs means that we have to learn to adapt on a day by day basis. If simple tasks feel overwhelming, it doesn't mean that you're failing at life. It means that your body is working that day with a different energy economy, and understanding that can help soften critique, soften shame, even before anybody externally says anything or notices. Um, I I wanted this space to be a place of honesty and transparency. So I'm going to share a little something with you. This weekend was supposed to be a weekend where I planned out my social media content for the next week. I had earmarked Friday, Saturday, Sunday as the days where I would be able to batch record my content for the week so I could be a week ahead just in case pain level soared or my energy tanked out. Guess what happened on Friday? Pain crisis. Of course. What else? And so, and so this entire weekend I spent in bed, in pain, exhausted. And by Sunday, I was frustrated. So I'm not speaking from a pedestal or a perch telling you that you should be gentle with yourself at all times, and frustration never happens, because it happens. And yesterday I was very frustrated, and I had to catch myself quickly. In fact, actually, I tell a lie. I didn't catch myself. My mother caught me. I called her to say that I was irritated with myself, that 3 whole days had passed and I hadn't been productive like I wanted to be. And she said, "Where's my grace and compassion for myself?" And so I hope that you have good people around you, that even when you forget your grace and compassion for yourself, that somebody is there to remind you. And if somebody is not there, I hope this is a reminder to you. It is okay to feel frustrated, annoyed, fed up that our bodies don't do what we want them to do. And although we have to process those emotions and, you know, although those feelings are valid, we also have to remember that feelings are not facts. Just because we feel frustrated with our body doesn't mean our bodies deserve that frustration. And I just wanted to share this space so that we can gently name things that we're feeling, in a way that can help other people. You know, a lot of us understand these ideas logically, right? Intellectually. But we struggle to apply them when we are in pain, when we are fatigued, when we are overwhelmed. And that's not a personal failing. It's a sign that more support is needed, that somebody else is needed to remind us of these truths. And it's also a reminder that We need to put structures and scaffolding in place, as opposed to more effort, because willpower is not going to charge our battery. For those of you who want deeper support and more guided support, I am opening the doors to my pain and fatigue liberation method this spring. It is a group cohort where we learn alternative therapy, complementary therapy, naturopathic, modalities and practices that are evidence-based and science-backed, that teach about nervous system regulation, that teach about how to live with pain and how to mediate and moderate the severity of pain that we experience, the frequency of pain that we experience, and of course, fatigue. And we do this in a place of steadiness, of clarity, self-trust, and alongside others who are living with chronic illness and complex medical needs, because who else understands but us? So I'm planning the next group for March or April, and I will share details gradually as I pull things together. Of course, there is no pressure to join. You can continue to follow me on social media for these free tidbits and insights into life with chronic pain. But if it is something that you're interested in, if it's something that's meant for you, you'll feel the calling, and when the information is up and ready, I will be able to share the link with you. But just for now, just bear in mind that this support exists and it's going to manifest in real time this year. So I am Jael from Cell-Based Nutrition. It has been lovely talking to you. I would really appreciate it if you could like, if you could comment below if this conversation resonated with you, if you could subscribe, and if you could share this video. The more people that hear this message, the bigger our community can become, and we can create a really lovely, safe space where we can talk about how our chronic illness impacts us and give support to each other. I would like you to remember that your body is not broken. Your cells are just undernourished. And I hope that today's discussion about energy helps you really understand how true that is. I will see you in the next video.